There's several reasons why you might want to enhance a portrait, even one that looks, at face value, as good as this shot here. For starters, there's technical reasons. You might not get the exposure perfect, the lighting might not be quite right, and then there's also physical reasons. You may want to remove some spots and freckles. There might be a bit of shine due to sweat on the model's skin. You've got shiny skin under the eyes there, and you might just want to tweak other things like a mole there, though to be honest you don't want to take away every sign of the individual's unique identity, so we won't go over the top hopefully on removing every single spot and freckle. But you can see once we go to the finished version there's a quite dramatic difference. Even though you can't think there's much to do with the original, we've actually removed some of the lines under the eyes, we've softened down the shiny skin, we did remove the mole in the end, we couldn't resist it, just to show what Photoshop can do. And we've also, if we go back to the original, you can see it's slightly cold, the colour balance isn't quite right, and it's creating a less inviting, cooler looking blue cast to the shot. But if we go back, we've warmed up the skin tones as well, and that's something Elements is very good at due to its skin tone tweaking command, which we'll have a look at later. And we've also, if you look at this skin here, rather the teeth I should say, you've got a slight yellow tint to them, maybe too much coffee, so we've whitened the teeth. We've also just boosted the whiteness of the eyes a little bit as well to draw the attention to the eyes even more when we first view the portrait. So there's lots to do there, and we'll finish off with sharpening just to reveal finer details around the hair and the eyes, especially in the iris, from the slightly soft original shot. So we're going to kick off by doing as much as we can in the RAW editor to start with, because the RAW editor has got the most quality, and once we exhaust all the possibilities of improving the portrait in RAW, we're then going to come to the standard editor and continue retouching. So let's kick off by enhancing our portrait in the RAW editor. You can do that by going to File, Open, and then find the source file, which is called makeoverstart.cr2. That's a Camera Raw format, and that will automatically open it up in the Camera Raw editor, which I've got the hopefully latest version 5.2. If you don't have that, you can download that from adobe.com. And now we've got our shot ready to edit in RAW, so we can get the best quality results from this edit. And let's kick off by tackling this color balance problem. It's slightly cold, so we're going to warm it up a little bit just by dragging temperature. We could experiment with the other presets, but temperature is a nice sort of intuitive way to warm things up. So if we go to about 5550, we've got a nice warm looking shot, and the skin tones are improving already. Let's just untick preview to see the before, slightly cooler, click again, and we've warmed up the skin. We're going to do more work on the skin later, but as much as we can do in RAW is a good idea. Okay, so once we've done that, let's just check the clipping warning to make sure we haven't got too many blown out highlights. If you go too far with warming up the shot, you can see it also tends to add a bit of clipping, so I'll take that down a little bit. If you do end up with clipping, you can use recovery just to recover the detail in those clipped highlights by dragging this slider to the right. But to keep things consistent with the magazine version of this tutorial, I'm going to take the temperature back down to 5550, like so, or 5550. There we go. Okay, let's tackle the midtones to bring out more detail in the hair. I'm using the zoom tool just to have a closer look, and if we take the fill light that focuses on the midtones, you can see it's brightening those up without messing around with the brightest highlights or the darkest shadows. So around about 15 should just reveal a little bit more detail around the brown hair here of the mid-toned section parts of the shot. Now let's get a wider contrast range. We've got nice strong white highlights, so let's make the blacks a little bit blacker just by pushing blacks up to about 11, and you can see if I go too far the shadows there under her head are getting very, very dark, so about 11 should do the trick. Let's just check clipping now. That will be clipped, but don't worry, there's nothing in there to see anyway, so it can be pure black. It doesn't matter if it prints out as pure black as well. It just gives us a nice tonal range between shadows, midtones and highlights. You can choose Fit in View to look at the shot as a whole, and we're going to tackle the colour now because the skin colour is very desaturated. We need to boost it a little bit in the RAW editor, and you could try boosting saturation using the saturation slider, but it gives you a very fake tan look, and it also causes a lot of clipping as well. So that's pretty horrible, and that will print really, really unpleasantly. So 0 to get rid of any changes there, and the much more subtle tool is Vibrance. So if we drag that up, it makes much nicer, more printable colours, and if we take it up to about 40, then it gives us a much better result. And then let's have a look at the sharpening options here. If you go to the Detail tab, you can see that by default you get a little bit of sharpening applied to your shot. Now we're going to do a lot of advanced sharpening at the end of this tutorial using some of the tools in the standard editor. So if you were just going to finish editing in RAW, you could leave these set as they are, but as we're going to go and sharpen it later, we can take this amount slider down to 0, and we'll look at some alternative ways to sharpen the shot. So that's pretty much all the changes we can make using Elements Raw Editor. If you were using Photoshop CS, you could also remove some of these freckles around the face here using the Retouch tool. Now we don't have that in Photoshop Elements, so we're going to have to zoom into the standard editor to get rid of some of the other artifacts in the shot that we don't want, like spots. But at the end of this tutorial I'll have a quick look at Photoshop CS and show you the Retouch tool in action if you fancy using some advanced techniques and you have CS, of course. So once you've tweaked the colours, the tones, got the colour balance right, improved the saturation of the skin tone, and just improved as much as you can in the raw editor, then it's time to move on to Photoshop Standard Editor to use the retouching tool and some of the other advanced commands in the Standard Editor. And to do that, just click Open Image, and we leave the raw editor, and we're now going to be in the Standard Editor, and we're ready to move on and start editing the shot using the commands and tools up here.